In today's video, we're going to be taking a look here at the current conditions as we have this major storm ongoing for the eastern United States. Things are underway and they will be coming to an end soon, so we're going to take a look at these current conditions. Also, the Arctic blast slash polar vortex is now officially in place, but the coldest is yet to come, so we're going to talk about how low those temperatures will eventually get, and then we're going to take a long-range look into the upcoming 10 to 15 day period, really just taking a deep dive into what this temperature pattern is going to do over time. Now let's take a look at the current conditions, and we can see there is some storminess happening out west that we'll talk about really quickly. We could see some mixed precipitation depending on where you're at here for the Oregon and Washington coastline here. The higher elevation areas seeing some snowfall, and then the lower elevation areas they're seeing rainfall. As we work our way further inland here, we see for the mountainous regions of the northern Rockies, we have mostly snow, if not all snow. In the whites and blues, we have extremely heavy snowfall, in the grays being much, much lighter snowfall up there. Definitely some interesting conditions. We do have some passing showers rolling through Arizona and New Mexico, and actually earlier on that was happening in the panhandle of Texas as well, near Lubbock and surrounding regions south of Amarillo there. Also some interesting things happening there. On the southern end of this cold front down for Florida, where it's actually really cold in Florida as well, we do have some thunderstorms moving along that line. So we can see this happening here near Cape Coral. I've never been that far south in Florida, but I'd love to visit. Maybe have to do that trip this year. That would be really nice. We can see some very heavy thunderstorms rolling through likely here, moving south through Cape Coral and actually areas south of there at this point as well. Let's continue northward, and we can see, and it's a little bit outdated, I think the cold front is beyond where it's showing up here. We can see that there is some back-end snowfall taking place for New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania. This has been a little bit underwhelming compared to what was expected here on the back end of things. It's been a lot drier. We do have a very intense look here, though, as we see this thunderstorm activity almost racing northward, where we have areas of snowfall much further south than this. It's just crazy. New York City had a severe thunderstorm warning rolling through, and then for all of Long Island, they got that as well, with this line of thunderstorms and showers, probably just showers with very heavy wind, and they're going to see some potential back-end snowfall right behind it. So imagine going from a severe thunderstorm warning over to snowfall within an hour, perhaps. Very intense stuff we're seeing here. And we just see this whole setup. It's so interesting to see it happening exactly how we expected. With the swinging cold front underneath and the extreme warm front pushing things to the north here. We can just see the dynamics here at play. A very, very intense look here with the sweeping cold front underneath and just the warm air shoving its way northward in a very intense way. This is leading towards immense amounts of storminess here for New England. And a lot of snowfall here on the back end. Like I said, a little bit underwhelming, but still there is plenty to go around. And I can tell you what, it is so windy on the front line of this thing. It is just so extreme. I wouldn't be surprised if there's millions of power outages happening across the eastern half of the nation. Right ahead of that extreme, I mean, almost record-breaking cold, very historic cold event, at least, you know, one of the bigger ones, especially in December. But definitely not a good combo there, the power outages plus the extreme cold, and I hope that's not going to lead towards terrible impacts that it potentially could. We see a lot of lake effect snowfall happening regardless of where you're at here on the lakes, because we see it happening almost on every single lake here. We see it over here, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan as well. Then we're seeing it for Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York here. This is going to be a big lake effect week this week, even heading into Christmas. It is going to be rough, and then mostly because we're seeing this rotation here, and the wind moving in this direction over the lakes is like worst case scenario, because that hits every single one of the lakes basically, even up here as well. We're seeing that, so it is just going to be a really big lake effect week. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move on. We're going to focus in on that upcoming pattern, talk about where things are headed after this point. The very extreme weather is here, and it is going to be gone eventually. We need to talk about what to expect for the weeks following it, and that hasn't been a focus point until today for the very first time. We're going to focus in primarily on what's happening after this. Now, as we work our way through the upcoming pattern, I want you guys to understand that the European models in general, that goes for the European model, the European ensemble model, the European weeklies, any European model, they do have a bit of a warm bias in the long range. I've noticed that before, and that usually They don't see cold that far out. They usually see more warmth than anything, even when cold is actually what ends up happening. So we're going to be aware of that. Of course, we do need to pay attention to the trends and the tendencies of these models. We do see that this is overall the pattern we're dealing with for at least the next 3, 4, or even 5 days here. But afterwards, we do have a sign that it is going to be a lot different than this. We see our snowstorm finally moves out by the time we're reaching Christmas morning. And we're left with an even more extreme pattern that looks, very classic. Ridge in the west, trough in the east here. There's only enough cold air for one half of the nation usually. There isn't enough to go around for everybody, so that's why we see these kind of teeter-totter type patterns, I guess you could call it, where there's like a balance beam happening here where, we see this rising and this sinking. It's this constant balance that occurs. We can see that this starts to change by the time we're reaching about Wednesday the 28th. And it's completely changed by the time we're reaching Friday here, where we see something a lot more like this, where the warm air is rising on the eastern end. We see a lot of this sinking happening here on our western end. This is a pretty common pattern, and this is looking like what we're going to see here for the end of December into the beginning of January. We do notice that in the long range, there's a lot of storminess for the eastern United States, or at least I've noticed this, that happens as this warm air rises. We see a lot of storminess moving in with it. Also, with the jet stream back here, we will see a lot of storminess moving along this for the western United States. So this is going to be plenty of snowfall out here and storminess. A lot of this is coming from your Gulf areas. So this is going to be humid, warm type storminess that's taking place there in the beginning of January. Now, I do feel like I am seeing some potential sign that this is heading a little bit further eastward here towards the end of this model run, but that is 240 hours out, so we're going to take that with a grain of salt. But certainly looks like we're going to be in that warm pattern at least from the 29th, 30th time frame, at least into the beginning of that first week of January. It becomes more of a question mark after that point. Now, the total snowfall through the next 10 days, this is what it would look like. The grays are dusting, if anything. Blues, 2 to 6 inches of snowfall. Purples, 6 to 10. Pinks, 10 to 20 there. Pastel blues will be 20 to 35. And then your pinks there will be 35 to 48 inches plus. Let's take a look here at the NAM on the eastern United States. I want to show you guys this apparent temperature in a very high resolution model on the eastern end of things. I would take a look at the central or west. I don't have time to do that today. And the weather is extreme out there, but I think it's a little bit more unheard of for the east and a little bit more rare. So that's why I really want to go over this. This is as we approach later this evening. So by about 8 p.m. tonight, this is the apparent temperatures. Look at the temperatures. So that is basically wind chill is what this means right here. It's taken into consideration humidity. It's the feel-like temperature that you might see pretty commonly. We could see negative 20 to negative 30 degrees in this corridor here. That's reaching areas like Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Louisville, or Louisville might be over here. We see a lot of your Ohio towns in there, all of West Virginia. This is going to be just so extreme. And your below zero is going to be the purple going into blue. So this is your 0 degree line as far as the feels like. This is just crazy. Atlanta, Georgia, maybe near Charlotte, North Carolina there. We see New York City, D.C., Philadelphia. So major areas seeing this extreme cold. And it is going to get colder, actually, as we approach Christmas Eve morning here. This is what I would say is probably the peak of it all, where northern Florida is in the teens, okay, as far as the feel-like temperature. And down as far south as Cape Coral, Orlando, and Tampa Bay area as well, that is going to be where it's going to feel like 20s on Christmas Eve morning. This is just so extreme. New Orleans is going to be in the teens as far as the apparent temperature. Like I mentioned, Mobile, Alabama as well. Absolutely crazy stuff here. Okay, so I don't want anybody to feel like this isn't going to be an extreme cool down, because it absolutely is. And Christmas morning won't be quite as extreme as you can see, but still, I mean, we're seeing 20s in Florida, 20s and teens for the deeper south, and then lower teens and even single digits in here. So certainly still extremely cold. It's just going to be a little bit warmer than Christmas Eve. But I don't think you're going to walk out on Christmas Eve and then walk out the next day on Christmas Day and be like, wow, it's much warmer today. You're not going to walk out and think that. It's going to be a 5 or 10 degree difference. So you're not going to be like, man, it's a lot warmer today. You won't even feel the difference. Although on paper, it will be a little bit warmer Christmas morning. Now, Let's take a look at the overall long-range temperature pattern. We see our Arctic blast moves in, and it sticks around. This is all the way through Wednesday, heading into Thursday. It's finally ending. So from today, the 23rd, all the way to the 28th, this will be lasting. But we can see this warm blob moving eastward, and this is just going to continue to move eastward until it's over the eastern United States. And this is when we're going to be seeing a lot of that warm, humid storminess moving northward along these areas. So it makes sense here. And that's the 31st of December. As we head well into January, it's January 4th, we see more neutral or below normal temperatures out west, indicating a negative PNA. And we have extremely warm temperatures here for the central and the eastern regions of the United States, but not only the United States, also Canada there. So we see a lot of these areas seeing this explosive warmth here in the eastern regions of North America, and then the west is colder or near normal. That is a pretty classic pattern, and that looks to last, according to this model, till the 7th of January at least, where we see this negative PNA and very warm temperatures heading out east. But look, this is very far out. We are going to take it with a grain of salt. I wouldn't be surprised if this ends before that point. I also would not be surprised if it lasts till this point or even longer. So we really need a lot of time to be able to tell. That's why you guys should subscribe and hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we do upload. Because eventually, once this pattern switches back to cold, we will be on top of it. We will be the first to show you because we'll be checking the models every single day. So be sure to do those things. Also, like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts, and I will see you guys in the next video.